When you think about meal kit companies, what do you see? Probably long, complicated recipes and subscriptions you can't escape. But with the new Blue Apron, we're doing meal delivery differently. No subscription needed. Faster, easier meals. And the same dedication to quality we've always had. Shop 100+ meals at blueapron.com. Get 50% off your first 2 orders with code APRON50. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
So we've signed a new commercial sponsorship deal with IVC, which is a Chinese wellness company. Goodness knows what that is. But anyway, the thing is about it is normally when we sign a new brand deal, it makes United feel a bit cheap and sort of like lowers us by association. Like Aperol Spritz, pretty depressing brand to be associated with, isn't it? But in this case, it feels like a terrible fit for the company on the other end of the deal, because surely Manchester United are not associated with wellness in any form.
Well, not at the moment. There were, what was it, 4 or 5 players returned last week, and another 3 were crocked during the week and missed the draw with Chelsea. So, and Herrera, I guess a recurrence of that rib injury. Falcao took a knock unspecified by Louis van Gaal. Everyone's worrying about his knee. He didn't make it. Phil Jones out with shin splints. Shin splints? Who gets shin splints these days, especially when he's only actually played 1 game, managed to get shin splints and he's injured again. Unbelievable.
Yeah, poor guy.
Well, poor guy, really? Poor guy, really? I mean, you know, it gets to the point where you got to wonder whether his preparation and regime is right. He gets so many injuries.
Well, okay, but if his preparation regime is not right, that's probably not his fault, is it? You know, he's not making up his own, is he?
Well, unless he's, out boozing and whatever. I mean, I don't know. It's just, there comes a point where you got to wonder whether it's unlucky or something has to change, right? So for years and years, Ryan Giggs had hamstring injuries all the time. They worked out what the problem was, fixed it, and he didn't get any hamstring injuries anymore. So I wonder whether it's time to have a look at Phil Jones and work out what's going on, because either that or just get rid, because at the moment there's no point. All that talent and all that potential, and it's doing nothing because he misses about half the games in any one season.
I mean, singling out Phil Jones for that is obviously completely unfair when it's every single defender we've had at the club for the last however many years.
Oh yeah, Evans, Rio, who used to get injured, Vidic got injured, Raphael definitely gets injured a lot. Shaw missed a load of the start of the season. No, completely, and it's completely predictable as well, which is why it was a little odd that United didn't strengthen more in the defensive department in the summer. Anyway, that was a preamble to the main topic of discussion, I guess, which is United's draw with Chelsea. What did you make of it?
I loved it, man. I loved that game. I thought we were really good in the first half, better than I expected us to be, and really functional, and that was good. And then we had a very, very flat half an hour after we conceded, but then we got back into it the last 15 minutes. Jose Mourinho, as you pointed out and will no doubt go into, made a very defensive switch, and then we absolutely battered them for 10 minutes and totally deserved an equaliser.
Yeah, can't argue with any of that, really. I mean, it's all about perspective, I think, with this one. So, if you were a neutral, you'd probably turn around and say Chelsea were in control of that game for most of the game. And United snatched a very late equaliser after some pressure. But in reality, Chelsea looked like the better side and the team that are more likely to go on and win the title. That'd be a kind of objective assessment of it. I think from a United fans' perspective, United came into the game massive underdogs, being really inconsistent this season, and managed to, live with Chelsea for a very large part of that game. And in the last 15 minutes, put a load of pressure on, which we weren't expecting because United had been dying in the last half hour of games this season, and come out with a fantastic result, And that's all about context, isn't it? Because I think if United had just won the league by 10 points last season or something like that, we might actually be disappointed with the performance. But given what we've been through as fans for the last year and a bit, that feels extremely positive. It's more of that that kind of momentum we talked about last week, isn't it? You know, and the really good thing was that United didn't concede a lot of goals. You know, it wasn't perfect. Rojo in particular made a couple of pretty serious errors. No one picked up Drogba for Chelsea's goal. It wasn't perfect, but it was a lot more solid than it has been.
It was indeed, and it was really fun in parts as well. Like, there's a few interesting things to note, I thought, about that game. So, defensively, maybe Rocco did make a couple of errors, but he also did a lot of things well. And I think it's definitely worth singling out Chris Smalling for a ton of praise, because he defended really well in that game, but also just like everybody sit down if you're kind of walking about because something crazy is about to get said. His distribution was excellent.
Yeah, what's going on there? Well, what was going on there, of course, is that Chelsea didn't press United's back four, which helped. So United's back four had the ball a lot. They just let them have it, right? And the thought, I assume, is that Chelsea were trying to keep very compact. I mean, they don't like playing with a high line, Chelsea, because their defenders are slow. So they try to keep very compact and then didn't press United, and that helped a lot, I think, with Smalling, who's not good under pressure when it comes to passing the ball. But he had a very, very good game, Smalling. On Rojo, I don't think there's a but with central defenders. Unfortunately, when you say he did a lot of good things well, but you can forget everything that came before the but, because mistakes cost games a lot of the time. Didn't in this case. So, I've got plenty of time for Rojo. I think he's got lots of good things going for him. He's adapting to a new team, a new pace of play, and I think a lot of the errors that he makes are to do with that. So, I'm not particularly worried about him. There's other players that you'd be a lot more worried about. So, I thought defensively United weren't bad at all. They were very interesting the way he played with the fullbacks, though, because they didn't push both of them forward at the same time, which is obviously to counter Willian and Hazard. So, when Shaw bombed forward, Raphael stayed back, and then the other way round. And it was much less cavalier in fullback positions than it had been against many teams this season.
Yeah, which I guess is also helped by the fact that the formation has much more natural width than the diamond, right? So you don't need that attacking impetus from both flanks at the same time, because Di Maria and Januzaj were both playing as wingers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think some of it was just simply tactical defensively.
Yeah.
Clearly a plan, but yes, United had more natural width in attacking areas than has been the case, and some balance there. I thought Januzaj had a very good game as well. It wasn't brilliant throughout all of it, but added some balance for United and looked a threat. They switched Di Maria and Januzaj at points through the game, and I thought it gave United a nice feel to the side. Felt more like a sort of 4-2-3-1, a kind of standard Premier League formation, didn't it? I suppose you could call it a 4-1-4-1, but something along those themes.
Yeah, you could definitely also get away with calling it a 4-5-1 or a 4-3-3, really, couldn't you? Because Mata was playing deeper than Di Maria and Januzaj by quite a way.
Mata did. He played very deep and again tactical. It was interesting how United went man for man in midfield, I thought. So Mata pushed on to Matic a lot of the time. Not really Mata's natural game, that, and I guess we'll talk about him a little bit. And then Fellaini went on Fabregas a lot, and we can talk about Fellaini as well. A good game from him. And Oscar was followed around by Daley Blind, and that was a natural match-up as well. So, clearly tactical, and I think in the end Van Gaal won the tactical battle. Not too many times you might say that facing Jose Mourinho, and maybe we'd have a different narrative if United hadn't scored in the 95th minute. But I thought tactically United got it spot on.
Yeah, absolutely. And performance-wise, this was very interesting. So I guess let's talk about the slightly more difficult thing first, so we can leave that on an optimistic note, just as the game was left on an optimistic note. Juan Mata, very little involvement, 34 touches in that game. That's his fewest touches of any game where he hasn't come on as a sub. In the 3 games that Rooney's been absent, Mata was pretty ineffective against Everton, although he did register an assist with a nice pass for Di Maria. He then was substituted in the 66th and 72nd minutes of the other 2 games. Flip-flop those orders, because it was 66th minute against Chelsea. The fact that Mata was taken off when we were chasing the game in both of those games with Rooney absent has got to be really bad news for where he stands in the pecking order, hasn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you made an assessment right now, you'd say he'd blown his chance of replacing Wayne Rooney at number 10. And I have to say there are quite a few caveats in terms of how United have played. I mean, I don't think he's really played as a natural number 10 in any of those games.
Except Everton, I think there's an argument there, but definitely not against West Brom or Chelsea.
No, and definitely not against Chelsea. Not necessarily his natural game. He wasn't finding the space. As I said, he pushed on to Matic a lot of the time. 34 touches. Mind you, Fellaini only had about 40, right? So, United outpassed Chelsea, which I'm not sure everyone would have predicted before the game. Although an awful lot of that came in the last 10 minutes, of course, when United had about 80% of the possession. So, a lot of that midfield for United didn't get a lot of touches. United actually went quite direct at times. Fellaini went quite direct, and that was the weakest part of his game. Gave the ball away a lot when he tried to pass it forward. There you go, Marouane. Just passed it backwards. Very good. Almost 100% when you pass it backwards. So getting back to the issue with Mata, he just hasn't been able to influence the games in those 3 matches he's been in for Wayne Rooney, which is a real shame because that's what you want him to do. You want the game to go through him, but it seems to bypass him. The tactic of find Di Maria seems to be the most popular one at the moment, which is fair enough because he's United's best player by a mile. But Mata is just not the creative number 10 that we want him to be, and he can be. He's not Mata a double player of the year at Chelsea, that's for sure.
No, and I think I've said this before on the podcast, but I maintain that a lot of this is psychological. A lot of this is to do with the fact that Mata knows he's not first choice in that role. He knows that he's the one of the superstar players that's going to be sacrificed for the system, and he's just been through that at Chelsea. And I think we just underestimate the human effect of things like that, don't we? We always think about systems and tactics and all that, but these are people, and he's experiencing a human thing. And I do find it frustrating when fans write him off, and I suppose fans find it frustrating when I write Wayne Rooney off, but I hope I wait a bit longer than a few games,
There's something else I write before off when it comes to Wayne Rooney. Anyway, Mata, we shouldn't write him off because he was double player of the year at Chelsea for a reason. He's a hugely talented player, and if we believe in him, then you build a side around him. I don't think Louis van Gaal is going to do that, so Mata will enjoy playing in Spain next year. And maybe Robin van Persie will join him, or maybe in Italy, because he had another dog-paw performance, I thought. Probably maybe better than the last couple, but not good. And I think that is one of the things that's not helping Mata either. He's so static at the moment, and that doesn't help if you're on number 10. You're trying to, basically the 3 players in front of him were Di Maria and Januzaj, 2 excellent options there, and then Van Persie, who is stood like a statue in the penalty area.
Well, what's really interesting is that Van Persie is doing quite well. There's absolutely no way I would describe his performance against Chelsea as dog paw. I think that's far too harsh from what his performance actually was. I think it wasn't his best by a mile, but I thought against West Brom he was maybe bordering on dog paw, but he was a lot better. Like, his hold-up play was way better, and he's dealing really well with the more direct play, I think, but less well with the more intricate stuff. That's my sort of back of a matchbook take on Van Persie's performance.
So Van Persie only got 13 touches, right? And part of the reason for that is he's just not moving. I don't know, maybe he's not fit. Maybe there's something wrong with him. He's not running the channels like he used to. He's very, very static, and I think that's affecting his game. He could have scored in the first half, of course. Very smart save from Courtois, who was on him very, very quickly. He did all the right things there, didn't he? Van Persie cut it back into the corner. I don't think he even looked at the keeper. He just instinctively shot, and it was saved. And of course, he scored the winner. So it's hard. It felt like a winner. Very sorry about that. He scored the equaliser. 4 minutes into injury time, so it's hard to fault that, right? He took that one well, but I think this is far, far from Robin van Persie at his very best, and I want him to get back there. But the longer it is since a really good Robin van Persie performance, the more you start thinking: is this decline? Is there something wrong with him? Mm-hmm. When are we going to get the real Robin van Persie back, if at all?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got Van Gaal as the manager, so if it's possible to get the real Robin van Persie back, we will, won't we? That's what you would assume based on their positive history together and everything. So we could say Mata and Van Persie. I don't even think Mata had that bad a game, to be honest, either. Like in the first half, he did a lot of nice things. There was a gorgeous ball to Di Maria really early on, which was vintage number 10 Juan Mata, wasn't it? And Di Maria volleyed it over, which was a shame. And then there was a moment where Rocco launched a diagonal and Mata trapped it and passed it to Adnan in one smooth motion. It was kind of poetry in motion, but he wasn't involved enough, so that wasn't a particularly good performance in that sense. Van Persie, the goal was massive and so much emotion shown after that goal, and you can see how much it means to him, as the old cliche goes. There's been lots of talk about his attitude and stuff, but once again, another game captained by Robin van Persie, another gritty, non-give-up, fight till the end performance from United. So I don't think too much can be read into that, but it is an interesting coincidence that that's happened in all 4 games, 3.5 games that he's captained.
It's a fair assessment. I don't know that there's any correlation between United's sort of gritty performances and Robin van Persie being captain. I'm not sure that there is by any means, but you can't fault United for keeping going. This wouldn't have happened under David Moyes last season, would it? I mean, frankly, David Moyes would have brought on a defender for a couple of strikers, wouldn't he? So be happy with a 1-0 loss.
You mentioned Moisey, and I saw somebody tweet, I'm really sorry, I can't credit this because I don't know who it was. Somebody tweeted, I always knew out of the 2 signings that David Moyes made, one of them would be useless and shipped out the following summer, and the other one would be a key part of our team for years to come.
Look, I think it's a bit premature, right? So
of course it is.
So Fellaini had a decent game.
It was a joke.
I know. So I took a while to think about it, because I'm hardly a Marouane Fellaini fan. I don't think he's got any of the qualities that are really required as a Manchester United player. And again, I think that the assessment of him is coloured by perspective, right? So he's been so poor for United, so utterly poor for United, that when he's anything better than that, the tendency is to go, wow, he was amazing. So I took a while to have a think about his performance and looked at all the data and lots of highlights again. And, there was some good stuff from Fellaini. He got about the pitch well. He was more mobile than we've seen him. Maybe that's to do with his fitness. He made 3 tackles in the game, which was good. He won a couple of headers. He was very solid with his passing in midfield. So that was the good stuff. The bad stuff, whenever he tried to play it in a progressive sense, he lost the ball, a lot of the time. So he only kept the ball 60% of the time when he tried to play it forwards. He didn't contribute an awful lot to the attack. Do we want him to? I just don't know what he is. He's not a defensive midfielder. He's not an attacking midfielder. He's not a central midfielder. So what is he? So, the positives, much brighter performance. He was physical. He made some tackles. He's good defensively. There's good energy, much more than there has been in the past. The negatives are just the technical side of his game is not good enough. So, I'm not sure if he's United's answer, but it was much better. And
you say the technical side of his game, but we can't mention the technical side of Fellaini's game without mentioning that stunning karate kick ball out wide to Di Maria. I think it was Di Maria, might have been Januzaj, midway through the second half. Absolutely phenomenal pass. I'm assuming he meant it. I'm pretty sure he meant it. The Fellaini thing, the big thing that I would want to say about that is after the West Bromwich game, on the last podcast, we were talking about him potentially starting against Chelsea. And I said his pattern all last season was to have a good game against a smaller side and then be absolutely terrible against the bigger teams. And there's no way, nobody is saying that Fellaini was absolutely terrible for United. And I think if you look at every individual performance in that game, there's every chance you could award Fellaini man of the match for United for that performance, which is pretty amazing, really. So, yeah, I quite enjoyed it.
Hey, I want him to do well. I'm pretty sure he's not the answer longer term. For the derby, I'd definitely bring Herrera back in. He's going to help United keep the ball and contribute more to the attack. But it was good. It was better, right? And that's can't ask for much more than that. Given what he is.
So many people in the Rantcast questions asking about Fellaini. One of them saying at Torja saying, it was great fun to listen to Saturday's podcast after the Chelsea game, especially our thoughts on Fellaini. I'm taking credit for that because it was me that really suggested he would be no good against Chelsea. And he said, how do you consider him versus Herrera now? And I think there's no contest. I think Herrera is in a completely different class of player to Fellaini. But Fellaini is very useful for something, definitely. And if he's going to play well, that's great news. You know, if Van Gaal's going to get something out of him, build up his confidence again. You know, he was an effective player for Everton in the Premier League for a long time, and that does count for something. It just doesn't count for him being the saviour of Manchester United.
Yeah, elsewhere. So let's praise Luke Shaw. Thought he had a very good game. He's taken a lot of criticism this season. Bizarrely, a lot of United fans writing him off after a game and a half or something. Just bonkers.
So weird, especially since I think he made one mistake in that game and a half as well. Anyway,
so he had a very good game. I already mentioned the kind of tactical side of his game. He was out of position an awful lot the week before, wasn't he? And that was against West Brom, and that was one of the major criticisms of him. But I thought he was very sound tactically against Chelsea. I was listening to Robbie Savage afterwards. Long story, had a journey, ended up listening to it. Who said that he's not a defender, you'd only buy him to be a wing-back, at which point I switched it off and never listened to him again.
I saw you bet him his career, but you didn't wager anything on your behalf for that. So
Yeah, well, it was just a bizarre argument. Even have an argument with a United fan about the effect of bringing a new manager in, and of course, Southampton new manager lost a lot of players and doing very well, and lots of kudos to Ronald Koeman for pulling that off. It's not the same thing, and I don't think anyone would believe that Southampton will finish above United this season. It'd be a big surprise if they did. You never know, but I'd be really, really surprised. So yeah, I bet him his job. We'll job swap. I reckon I'd do all right on Match of the Day.
Yeah, definitely. Although you're not allowed to swear on Match of the Day, which might make it tricky for you.
Oh, that's no good, is it?
So yeah, other players that did well in that game. Well, Di Maria, you said United's best player by a mile, and he is. Although I reckon Falcao could give him a run for his money on his day. But Di Maria, 18 crosses, 6 successful. I was watching that game thinking his crossing's wild today. But actually, that's a brilliant ratio. 1 in 3 crosses finding a United player. And of course, got the crucial, not quite going to count as an assist, but put the ball perfectly on Fellaini's head just when it mattered most.
Yeah, well look, if Di Maria had been playing in a Moyes team, United would have scored about 15 because Di Maria would have put in 40 successful crosses. So look, a lot of people said he had a bad game. He created 4 chances for United. Yeah. Is that a bad game? I mean, he's an all or nothing player, isn't he, Di Maria? So he takes a lot of risks in the way he plays. He puts a lot of fantastic balls in, a lot of them don't come off. That's what you get. It's, mega quality and big numbers, and he always puts up those numbers. And I think that's, he had a slightly quieter game than the other ones he's played for United, but he still created a whole bunch of chances for United. That's good for me.
Absolutely. Although I would also say that Mata, getting a lot of criticism, also created 3 chances. So, interesting. I wanted to come to the tactical point that you made on we had a text message exchange after the game, and I thought you raised a really interesting point, which was that United had 4 of their 7 shots on target in the last 10 minutes of the game after Mourinho went really defensive.
Yeah, I thought he handed the initiative to United. I mean, so after Chelsea scored, they really controlled the game for about half an hour, and it looked like there was a big gulf in quality between the sides. But he pulled off Oscar, Willian and Hazard. Oscar you can kind of understand because he didn't have a good game at all. Hazard was interesting because he gave the ball away a lot. I think he turned over the ball 8 times, which is the only player who turned over the ball even anywhere near that was Fellaini, who turned over 4, I think. But so you can kind of sort of understand that, and Mourinho has a tendency to pull Hazard off and Oscar, and then Willian the other one. So he took off with these 3 attacking players and brought on a load of defensive players, and he kind of really changed Chelsea's mentality. I mean, they changed their mentality about 30 seconds after they scored. They slowed the game right down, and they were happy to try and keep possession. But in the last 15 minutes, really handed United the initiative. And what happened was really good because I think under Moyes, sorry to keep saying this, but under Moyes, United wouldn't have gone for the jugular there. Under Van Gaal, they did. And they created a lot of chances in the last 10 minutes. And you can say they've thoroughly deserved to score one of them because they create so many chances.
Yeah, and I think you apologise for saying under Moyes it would have been different. But I feel like that's something that needs saying over and over and over again, because the absolutely bizarre narrative that somehow it isn't obvious to anyone playing the blindest bit of attention that Louis van Gaal is building something and David Moyes wasn't. Like David Moyes was a terrible choice for Manchester United manager, but that doesn't mean completely abandoning the concept of patience forever. This is what seems to have happened in response to the disaster of Moyes, is that now, like, there's genuinely United fans, let alone people in the media, writing United off. This is a stupid thing to talk about, really, because it's so meaningless. But the Times player ratings of that game were genuinely bizarre. I mean, they were just completely skew. I think they gave Drogba a 7 and Van Persie a 5. And I'm pretty sure they had the identical game, which was good hold-up play, nothing much else working, both scored a goal each. It's like... Anyway, but that's by the by. But this notion that somehow, David Moyes had one more point than United at this point last season. At Rob Pollard, friend of the show, asking, can anyone tell me how many points Manchester United had at the same stage under Moyes? No one seems to know, because everyone keeps saying that. But it's like... So what? We had one more point. We had about 500 less brilliant moments of excitement and about 1,000% less hope for the future. So I'll sacrifice that 1 point for those things, please.
That's completely fair. Although that does bring up one thing, which is an interesting one, a debate with someone on Twitter about where United might finish. So his argument was that United won't finish in the top 4 and it's looking very bad. And I said I think they will do it and they'll get around 72, 75 points. And I think it's possible. I mean, that would still be a very good last 8/10 of the season. So, to get 72 points, United would need something like 18 wins, 6 draws and 5 losses, something like that, right? And if you look at where we are right now, that's a stretch. It's not. I'm not saying they won't do that. Might not lose as many as 5, but might not win all those games. So, who knows? I suspect that United will win enough home games that they'll just creep over the line. So, that's the only reason the points thing really counts. The big picture is that United are moving forward now, and it never felt like that under Moyes. And I think, and it's an if United can sort out the injury problems, if we can get some kind of consistency in the pattern and style of play, if the players click and suddenly take on board all the information that Van Gaal gives them, then we could be having a very good second half to the season.
Yeah, and I think that's favourite. I think that's favourite to happen. I think that's more likely than we have a very stuttering. I'm sure there'll be some poor performances along the way, but if we can put any kind of consistent starting 11 together, or even, starting 9, then I think we've got a really fantastic chance of doing exactly that. At Maz_man_United says, can we make the top 4 without some signings in January? And I think ultimately that's going to be a redundant question, because I'm pretty sure we are going to make some signings in January. I'll be very surprised if they are the player we need. But I'm sure some cover will be bought in January, won't it?
Yeah, well, look, the defensive situation is a real issue. If Jones, Smalling and Evans can't stay fit, then United need a central defender. And an experienced one, as well as McNair and Blackett have done in their total of 8 games between them. I think there is a tendency to believe they are the saviour. I had a debate on the United Rant forum, unitedrant.co.uk/rant on, if you like forums. I know it's very old school, but some people still do. Had a debate about whether Blackett and McNair were more than promising or not. I think promising is the right label at the moment. It brings to mind John Curtis. Remember him years ago? Absolutely blinding first sort of 5 or 6 games for United. Ended up playing at Gold Coast United as his last game.
This is the thing. There's no debate to be had over whether they're more than promising or not. Adnan Januzaj is still promising. It's like until a young player's played 3 seasons, you can't say whether they're more than promising, can you? Maybe 3 seasons is a bit long, but 2 games, promising is the very best they can be, isn't it? At that point. I want to say something else about that game. Talk about media coverage. The idea that somehow celebrating that goal as wildly as the United players and United fans did was somehow reflective of United's decline is one of the most bizarre, joyless arguments I've ever heard. It was a last-minute winner. We both keep calling it winner. You both keep calling it winners because it felt like a winner, because So many of us thought we'd lose that game. Chelsea are definitely in a much stronger position. Mourinho's been there a year longer than Van Gaal. They've addressed a whole bunch of issues. They're probably going to stroll to the title, right? So it was huge, that result. It was also huge in the context of momentum in our season, because we're now still unbeaten since that Leicester game where we completely fell apart. And actually that's a really big deal, because we need that 1 point as well. That point could be the difference between Europe and no Europe, and it gave the whole club a massive lift. It gave Van Persie a massive lift. It gives Fellaini a massive lift. Van Gaal everyone gets to hold their head up in training and say we fought till the last second of the game. And if you're a fan of a team and your team gets a point or 3 in the last minute of the game and you're not celebrating like a lunatic, what's the point of watching football, right?
Yes, joyless is what you said. Joyless. Yeah, United celebrated a last-minute winner.
Wasn't a winner.
I'm just going to keep calling it a winner, because you know what, Chelsea fans feel like losers today, and that's why they're bitter about United actually celebrating. Right, one more thing about the media. The mega focus on Grapplegate in the United box, where Chelsea denied a penalty or 3. With fighting in the box. I have to say, first few times round, I missed Smalling and Ivanovic, because I was too busy watching John Terry try to make love to Marcos Rocco. He was so tightly around him. And of course, it depends on which part of the video reel that you watch there. Frame by frame, Terry's trying to pull off Marcos Rocco, and a few seconds later, Rocco's got him round the head, and about the same with Smalling as well.
And anyway, there's nothing funnier than distracting the ref and a tag team move happening at the same time. We've learnt this from years of watching WWF wrestling. That is a good thing. Their coordination, Smalling and Rocco working in perfect tag team unison while Bobby the Brain Heenan distracts the referee there. One for the old school wrestling fans. But yeah, no more or less than happens every single game. Of course, it was a penalty if the referee looks at that at the right moment. And I don't know if anyone's mentioned this, Ed, but once Chelsea got quite a dodgy goal at Old Trafford, which led to them winning the title.
Yeah. No one actually mentions that outside of Manchester United podcasts or blogs. It's forgotten in the history of everything that they stole the title that year.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all in all, an extremely satisfying draw. Definitely still problems. Chelsea definitely look like the side that are more likely to go on and win the league for the rest of this season. But as for next season, I think that's going to be a very, very different kettle of fish. So I guess maybe we should do some Rankcast questions at this point, unless there's any Manchester United related news that's happened in the last few days that you want to cover.
No, I think we covered the really big news, which is United's brand new Viagra sponsored partner in China and wherever else. Not a lot else. No books out this week. I mean, what's going on? Not one ex-United player has come out with a new book. Although I have to say, reading a bit more of Roy Keane's book, my favourite line in it is just absolutely fantastic when he calls the kind of circle of ex-Manchester United players now working for the club like Disneyland. It's just one of the most cutting lines and just perfectly timed as well. Just really, really vicious from Keane. Perfect stuff. So still enjoying that.
Okay, me too. Yeah, that book is definitely going to be my book of the year at the end of the year. Pretty sure it's going to be the only book I read that came out this year, but still. At Tweebijit says, is Headlock going to be the name of John Terry's post-football metal band?
No, it's going to be Slip Up, isn't it? Clearly.
At AB5Y says, what is our strongest 11? No idea, man. Just no idea. Yeah.
De Gea, Raphael, Jones, Rojo, Shaw, Herrera, Blint, Di Maria, Van Persie, Falcao, and then there's 2 others. I guess Rooney, because you have to have him.
Haven't you got one too many? Isn't that 11?
Okay. No. There's two more on there.
You got one more after Rooney.
Whatever. I'm allowed 12 players.
Januzaj, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, on talent alone, you'd have him in the 11. He hasn't always shown it, but he's a better option than Ashley Young or Antonio Valencia. I'm pretty sure you must, doing the maths, you must have too many players there, because if you've got Januzaj, Di Maria, Rooney, Falcao and Van Persie in the team, that's a lot.
So I'm going...
Yeah. Whatever.
But it's interesting that you picked Jones and Rocco as our strongest starting centre-back partnership, because that's really where the big question is, isn't it? I mean, there's questions up front too, but of all the different options, that's the one... I mean, I think that's the one that I go for too, although I do like Johnny Evans, and it will be nice to see him getting back to form and fitness. I think I go for some sort of 4-3-3 with De Gea, Raphael, Rocco, Jones, Shaw, Blint, Herrera, Di Maria. No, Blint, Herrera, Mata, and then Di Maria, Falcao and Januzaj up front, and Louis van Persie and Rooney both on the bench. That's obviously never going to happen. At Bobby Fagihi says, is Fellaini's revival down to the way the trainer-coach of Manchester United pronounces his name? Fellaini is much better than Fellaini, it would seem. I wonder whether, like, because he's Dutch and Holland and Belgium are sort of next to each other, maybe Van Gaal's right, maybe it is pronounced Fellaini.
Yeah, I don't know. Actually, I don't think Fellaini is a Flemish, though, is he? So
no, that's true. Very good point. At Tweets of a Red says, can you refrain from too much banter and silliness in this podcast, please?
We don't want any banter and silliness.
No, none of that sort of thing.
Talking of banter and silliness, have you seen this here Tesco milk carton that's got a big penis on it?
No, I haven't. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's cracking. Just search on Twitter for Tesco milk penis.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, do it. It's funny.
I'm not going to do that. That just doesn't sound like something I want to do. Unlike answering this question, which is something I want to do, I think much like the Tesco milk carton is more up your street, Ed. This one feels a question for me. At Ben Glorious says, the Ewoks were very adept at preparing for war. Does this mean that they weren't the most dangerous indigenous species on Endor? I think that's perhaps one of the arguments, but the other one is that the Empire have been there long enough for the Ewoks to have developed some guerrilla war skills. But it did, or maybe it's just multiple tribes of Ewoks fighting each other. That's the other possibility in that case. At Sean_Payne_7 says, what's for tea? What did you have for tea, Ed?
This is going to sound a bit poncy. I had a Marks and Spencer's salmon and shrimp salad with lentils, couscous, and some other veggie nonsense. That was kind of snack. I'm actually going to have some more tea after this podcast.
All right, you got a plan? Have you got a recipe lined up?
No, I'm going to look through my extensive collection of fancy food.
I had spaghetti with a spicy tomato and pea sauce. It was very nice. Lots of ginger in the tomato sauce. It was great. And tarragon. At Follow My Trawler says, if you had to name your only son, well, okay, Ed, or your second son, after a current United player, who would you choose?
Ooh, current. Has to be current. Well,
Radamel is a pretty cool first name, to be honest.
It's a pretty cool first name, but being English and all, that it would be a bit odd. So there aren't too many choices. It wouldn't be Chris because my dad's called Chris, and I don't, I'm not really into that whole let's name him after previous generations thing. Yeah, Daly's a bit weird as a name, isn't it?
Oh, Daly's cool. Like, Daly Barker sounds good to me.
I think the only Dalys that are allowed are Daley Thompson. If you remember the computer game and the 1980s decathlon star.
And the real human.
Yeah, for those of you who liked bashing keyboards, that's not a euphemism. So it's going to have to be Robin.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I'm sticking with Radamel. I don't care if it's a bit odd. At Craig English 92 says, is Fellaini having a mini revival or benefiting hugely from LVG's training/instructions? I think Ed's point about perspective is well taken, and that it is about a relatively small improvement looks massive. But I think it could be Van Gaal. I mean, if you look at the Holland squad in the last World Cup, Ron Vlaar was excellent throughout that World Cup, and that's not something anyone thought anyone would say, is it?
Ron Vlaar, who's currently getting battered around by it was Bobby Zamora, aged 97.
Yeah, well, quite. At Nightwink99 says, could we see Fellaini taking Rooney's place?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, absolutely. Nailed on. He's world class, that Fellaini.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. After Mata's performance over the last 3 games, are you willing to concede that we're better with Rooney in the side? No! Absolutely not. It's that's the kind of like, oh, we've got 1 point more under Moyes this time last season. Direct comparison nonsense that has no place in football. Sorry, at Simba for that response. It's not necessarily the case that we're not better off with Rooney, but I'm certainly not prepared to concede. It's the classic thing of players getting better in their absence, right? It's not like if we'd had Rooney in the last 2 games, we would definitely have won. We might not have come back and drawn even, you know?
Well, quite, yep. Rooney has a tendency to not play it simple and go for the Hollywood ball all the time. Actually, I thought when James Dawson came on, he was quite effective at trying to stretch the game. So there you go.
Absolutely. At Kevin Livingston says, as Blindy sucks a fixture, what does Fellaini's resurgence mean for Herrera? Only played against weaker midfields? No, not at all. I think Fellaini is going to be second choice when Herrera's fit. I think he's, as I said earlier, Herrera is a different class of player to Fellaini. And if Herrera hadn't been injured, there would have been no Fellaini revival because there wouldn't have needed to be one. And at Liz Worsley, friend of the Rantcast, says, it's at Liz Worsley, I was corrected at one point. Jones, Smalling and Evans, you can only keep one out of the 3. Who'd you choose and why? I think I choose just about Phil Jones I feel like his top level potential is higher than either of the other 2, but it's close because of the injuries.
We'll call her whatever we like, jog on, love.
No, it wasn't Liz that corrected me, actually. I just heard someone pronounce the name and it was different and I felt bad for having pronounced it wrong all these years.
Very good. Or bad.
Okay, and the final question, actually, from at Jack Hawkins 23 says, who would you put in centre midfield against City? That's why I asked this question, because it leads us nicely into previewing the City game. Out of Carrick, Fellaini, Blint, Herrera, Fletcher and Di Maria. I think you take Fletcher out of that straight away.
Old sick boy, yeah. No, you don't have him in there, and I don't think Carrick's ready either. I would go with Herrera and Blint as my 2 sort of holding players, and then play 3 attackers in front of him.
So you're saying, would you? I mean, I guess you'd drop Fellaini then.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think United. I mean, there's going to be an argument that United should have a physical presence in there versus Yaya, but I think Yaya is going to be better than anyone, even Fellaini, when it comes to a physical battle. So you might as well go for the technical piece and play Herrera to keep the ball, which will be pretty important, I think, if United are under pressure a lot of the time. And I actually don't think Fellaini's that good defensively, right? So we're going away from home. I'm not sure that he's actually going to provide that kind of defensive shield that United might want. So yeah, that's my justification.
I think that's a very reasonable justification. This is a fascinating one, isn't it? One thing that I wonder is if Falcao and Van Persie are both fit, now that Rooney's back, are we going to actually revert to a sort of diamond midfield again? But then, even if we do, are we saying that we're going to see Rooney at the tip of the diamond?
Yeah, it's a good question because actually United have found some balance playing 2 wide players and in the defensive side of things as well, as we noted. So it'll be an interesting one if they do switch away from that and go back to the diamond so they can squeeze Rooney, Falcao and Van Persie into the side. I mean, the chances are that Falcao is not going to be properly fit, so he may well find himself on the bench anyway, and then the Van Gaal can squeeze 3 midfielders in there and kind of gerrymander it that way. But if Falcao is fit and raring to go, you have to play your £50-odd million player, don't you? So be an interesting choice, that one.
I mean, you don't have to play him, do you? Because you can sort of have the excuse of easing him back to fitness, I suppose. I'm inclined to think that we're going to play the shape that we've played in the last 2 games. I'm inclined to think that if all the same players are fit and available, even if there are some extra players fit and available, the starting 11 might be the same, especially if Herrera's not, because there's fit and there's fit, isn't there? Coming back from a broken rib, I'm sure that takes some easing back into, doesn't it? Obviously, Jones isn't going to be back because shin splints is pretty nasty. It can take a good long time to get back from, so we can assuming that Chris Smalling stays fit for a week, which is a big assumption, but that we're likely to see the back 4 the same. And then midfield, it's really Fellaini or Herrera. That's the big decision. I don't see Carrick coming back into the starting 11 against City. More likely to come on as a sub against Crystal Palace at a push, maybe even start against Palace, depending on how the City game goes. And then Di Maria, Januzaj, and either Van Persie or Falcao and Rooney.
And that would be Van Persie. But, I mean, of course, that changes things. I mean, it's easy to say just swap one player out in Mata. But Rooney plays in a very, very different way. He'll certainly push further forward. he'll play more like a striker, playing deep rather than midfielder. Here I thought Jay at Datarant made a very good point in his latest piece, in that Van Gaal thinks of Rooney as an attacker, and he thinks of his number 10 as an attacker rather than Mata, the midfielder, playing in that role, and that's one of the reasons why he goes for him. But Rooney will tend to switch the ball to the wings very quickly rather than looking through for the through ball. So he'll speed up play rather than slow it down. So it changes the way United play significantly if you play Rooney in that role. I mean, I guess whatever happens in terms of the tactics, Rooney will be playing at that number 10 position, and the real question is one striker or two, and Fellaini or Herrera.
Yeah, absolutely. And or a surprise, like maybe Valencia will be back and he'll decide that actually there's a physical presence in the centre of midfield.
Here's a good idea. Why don't we go to 3 at the back and play Ashley Young at left wing back?
Yes! I'm totally on board. Let's do it. It's very hard to be properly optimistic about this game. It was hard to be optimistic about the Chelsea game, even though I had some optimism, because our home form's been real terrific since the opening day of the season, when it of course wasn't. But our away form's a bit patchier, still no win on the road, and Etihad is not a happy hunting ground for United anymore. But the flip side of that is City have been a bit bobbins, haven't they?
Yeah, lost to West Ham at the weekend, and Sam Allardyce doing the business at West Ham at the moment, isn't he? I mean, so many haters, and he's turned them around, and they're going great guns at the moment. Look, I don't think you can read a lot into the last game. City are a bit inconsistent, but they've got some big players. I mean, David Silva's on fire, scored such a wonderful goal at the weekend. It's going to be a really difficult game for United. City, you expect to have a lot of possession. They just have a lot of possession anyway. They retain the ball very well. Interesting stat I saw today, only 7% of City's passes are long, as opposed to 13% for United. United a lot more direct under Van Gaal than City under Pellegrini, and you'd expect United to be under a significant amount of pressure. It's going to be a very difficult game. I mean, everyone feels high after that late equaliser against Chelsea, but I don't think it really changes the dynamic for the derby. City are big favourites for this one, and it's going to need another massive performance from United to get something out of it.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I would say is different from when we played them there this time last season is you feel that this is a side with a big performance potentially in it. I definitely think it's second favourite to happen, and most likely City are going to win this game. But it's not like it would be a completely colossal shock if United put together a really good performance. It would be, we've got a lot of really phenomenal players because, as you rightly say, City have got some brilliant players. They've got Aguero, who's been on fire, Silva, who's properly caught fire again and sort of did score that lovely goal. Toure, who you never know when he's going to explode into maximum form. But Mangala's looked hot and cold in defence. Kompany's got a mistake in him, when you need him to. Joe Hart certainly has a mistake in him. And we've now got some players who are in really sparkling form and are excellent. So, that's the flip side. Having said all that, of course, I think City are favourites for this, and that's unfortunate, and maybe that'll be different this time next season. But for now, that's the City project is a lot more advanced than the current United project, isn't it?
Oh dear, you used the word.
I did.
City, don't use that. Yeah. Project 2, terrible. Well, look, right, absolutely, this is a mature side, City, and much further ahead in their planning, much as Van Gaal said the same about Chelsea, of course, a year ahead, which I think is fair, so the City have been a little bit inconsistent. There are some parallels here with the last time City tried to defend the title and did it very badly. Of course, Pellegrini is a manager that creates a lot less conflict than Roberto Mancini, so it's less of that. You do wonder whether the fact that they're stuffed full of mercenaries does affect their attitude. It's just obvious, right? Might be, but you'd expect them to be fully up for the derby. It's going to be a huge game for United. I do think United are capable of getting something out of it, though, and I agree with your point that United have a big performance in them, right? And Chelsea has proven that. So United, they can lift and raise their game, those extra few percentage points. They're getting better by the week. Maybe this is the breakthrough game of the season.
Yeah, and if it's not the end of the world, is it? That's the other thing. Like, this is, we won't be talking like this next season, all being well. But for now, points here is a bonus, right? This is not where we need to be getting our points necessarily. But of course, it's the derby, and so it has massive emotional significance. I just want to pull a couple of things out of what you said. First of all, Chelsea, I think, are 1 year ahead of United in terms of building, but City are actually 3 years ahead or whatever, because they've had a very stable, organised building process for quite some time now, haven't they? Whereas Chelsea really declined, and then it was only once Mourinho arrived they started to rebuild. But City have fully embraced that director of football structure, haven't they? And a lot of the people that were in the team that won them the league 2 seasons ago or 3 seasons ago, which we don't talk about, are still in the team, aren't they? It's not at its heart a different team. So yeah, I guess with all that said, we should predict what we think is going to happen in this game.
7-0 to United.
Yes.
7. Maybe 8. I'm a bit undecided. No, I think United are going to get a draw.
Okay.
There you go.
Nice.
I'm being positive.
That's optimistic. I think City are going to win 2-1. Boo. Boo. I'm booing myself.
Disappointed in you. I think United are going to get a 1-1 draw.
That'd be fine. That'd be great. I'd love that.
I hope it goes in off the referee's backside and then through Joe Hart's legs, just to watch the Blues melt.
As you said to the Paris Angel on Twitter, Fellaini handball in the 96th minute for a goal.
Be awesome, wouldn't it?
It would. It'd be lovely.
I would be a full Fellaini or Fellaini. Fellaini?
You're a Fellaini fan.
I'll be a Fellaini fan for life, fellas. If he handballed it in the last minute, it'd be brilliant.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to the show for another week. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll be back the same time next week. In the meantime, you can get us on Twitter. You can get me at UTD Rantcast. You can get Ed at United Rant. You can get producer Tom at Tej Sound. If you want to chuck a couple of quid our way because you like the show, feel free to do so at unitedrant.co.uk/donate. And as Ed said, there is a forum on United Rant. We don't plug that because, but if you do like forums, it is one.
It is a litany of vile nastiness.
Yeah, a hive of scum and villainy.
Very good. It's good stuff.
Han Solo.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So if you like that kind of thing and it floats your boat, there you go.
A review or rating on iTunes really helps us because iTunes is weird and it makes a massive difference to the way the show is. So basically, if everyone listening wrote us a review this week, we'd be number 1 in the iTunes charts, and that would be very exciting for us and the other 6 people that run podcasts that look at the iTunes charts.
Yeah. Are we allowed to gerrymander the result in that way? Here you go, social experiment, all 10,000 or whatever it is that are listening this week. Go off and rate us 5 and write wonderful things about us, and Paul will come around and shake all your hands afterwards. Honest, Gov.
I totally would. If it was practical, I would. I would definitely shake your hand / give you a hug at Old Trafford if we're ever there at the same time. That's for sure.
Very good. Of course, the thing about this doing a podcast for the fun of it and not the cash is that it really doesn't matter if 1 person or 1 million people listen to it, except for our own personal gratitude.
Yeah, that's right, because we basically do this as an excuse to talk to each other once a week about football, and we've been doing it for some millions of years now, and we're going to keep doing it for the time being. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll be back same time next week.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.